Good morning. Welcome back to ExPat InSights. I'm your host, Raju Mandhyan. We are in the middle of a conversation with the former Dutch ambassador, Mr. Theo Arnold, and currently an author. And we are talking about his book and his opinion, his work of art torn between two lovers. So, Sir Theo, Ambassador Arnold, tell us now about the book. What is the book all about? What is it saying?
Yeah, where to start?
Yeah.
Let me put it this way. When you, after retirement and reaching the age of 70, you start to reflect about your life.
Which is a good thing to do.
About your experiences, lessons learned.
Yeah.
And you think about how to share this.
Yeah.
And in addition, I had a message which in brief is culture matters. Mm-hmm. Meaning that habits, behavior, often referred to as the Filipino way,
Yeah.
do affect the development of the country. That's
Right.
my view.
Yeah.
And well, I could have written just an article about that.
Yeah.
But a few people of the academy would have read it. And I wanted to create more awareness that in my feeling there is a need for change.
Mm. Oh, let me try and understand what you're saying is, I remember somebody making a remark, a quote, mm-hmm. saying that culture trumps strategy all the time. That means no matter how many change initiatives the government creates or the leaders create, if the culture doesn't change, all the policies, all the laws will go to waste. No?
Yeah,
So
right,
culture stumps strategy.
Yes.
So to make a point about that, you wrote this book.
Yes.
So what is the point? What are the points if not a point? One is, of course, the fact that change the culture, then the strategy, or then the government or the country will change, no?
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is that there are certain morality flaws which are so strongly embedded in society, like, for instance, corruption, mm-hmm. which is endemic, which leads to nepotism, patronage, money politics, mm-hmm. A culture of impunity. Mm-hmm. And this all together results in bad governance, what mm-hmm. in the idiom is called bad governance.
A governance that needs to improve.
Because bad governance result or cause weak institutions. Mm-hmm. And a country with weak institutions, well, whatever policies you try to implement, it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. That's the experience of social scientists and economists, and it's mm-hmm. a growing belief. And I think that the Philippines is a clear case of that.
And so would you pause for that?
Yes.
So my question is, across the world, there are multiple cultures, mm-hmm. and they are not geographically divided. They are not geographically divided, no? They are happenstance of the country's terrain, or the history, or the religious belief. They are happenstance. They come out of that, no? Now, they're not built in a day.
No.
They're not built. They are built over centuries, no? Mm-hmm. So you're probably recommending change from that aspect. So how? The question is, how would you recommend to change mountains that have existed for centuries?
What the Philippines would need is a moral revival.
Yeah.
And I think it's the platform the president was elected.
The current President Pinoy.
Pinoy was elected, and he made a very good start.
Yeah.
And I think the pork barrel scandal, as it came out, is a proof of what I'm saying. And because the pork barrel scandal, if proven that it was indeed the case, resulted in a waste, in an inefficient use of funding. We all know that there is not enough money for education, for proper housing, for infrastructure, and that is one of the other reasons why the Philippines is the laggard compared to other countries in Southeast Asia. If you compare it to Malaysia, compare it to Thailand, you will see that the Philippines is far behind. I would say at least 10 years, if not more.
Well, that's a lot.
Yeah, and the reason for that and the excuse for that has always been, yeah, but we don't have money.
Yeah.
But the money has been wrongly spent.
Okay.
So if the money is correctly spent and there is less corruption, and corruption is banned and would become a shameful issue, now people get away with it. The culture of impunity means that the chances that you get caught are very, very minor. So you take the risk. And this should change. And the leadership has to be the first to show the people how to behave.
So let's say we
Yes.
started the conversation by saying that culture is a big thing.
Culture matters.
It's been omnipotent for decades or centuries, and this is a symptom. The current issue, the current exposure is a symptom. It's not the cause or not the grand effect of all those causes. It's just one of the symptoms, no? So our conversation is going on the track that how do we change this?
How do we change this?
Yeah. So what is your recommendation? Actually, my first question on my mind is that you and I, not being Filipinos, do we have a right to express this opinion? Do we have? Are we on the right track, in the right forum?
I think everybody, we don't have a right to vote. And we don't have a right to be active in politics. But as a responsible citizen, wherever you are,
Residents, yeah?
as a resident,
Yeah.
I think you have the right to have an opinion. And I would like to see my views as constructive criticism to help the country. I mean, I'm living here for 15 years. I expect to stay here forever. I would like to see a more equitable, a more prosperous country with less poverty, with more employment, with better infrastructure, more development to catch up with the other countries I just mentioned.
And your opinion will serve who?
It will serve, because first of all, I think there should be a greater awareness.
Right.
And so the public at large should be willing this change. Should be made ready for change. Because it involves everybody, because in all segments of society there is corruption.
Actually all societies.
Yeah, from low up to the top.
Okay, at all levels.
All segments, all levels of society.
Yeah.
So you need the cooperation of all levels of society if you want to
Right.
abolish it, right? And to abolish it will create more efficient use of funds, so
Right.
that there will be money for infrastructure.
Yeah.
And I'm also talking about the population issue.
Yeah.
Because,
So you're first
yes,
saying that let's create awareness.
let's create awareness.
That we need a moral revival.
Yes.
That means
Yes. Yeah.
at every rung of society, and not all societies, but even this, that all rung of society, that we must have a strong buy-in saying that it is time to change fundamentally. Fundamentally. That's what
Yes.
your thrust is. And it is in the book.
Yes.
Okay, and then, follow on. You are saying something about population.
Yes. I strongly believe that the adoption of the RH bill is of great importance.
Yeah.
I hope that the Supreme Court will come out very soon so that the law can be implemented, because that is stalled now. Because I deal with it extensively also in my book, because I think it's a major issue. As long as the economic development does not translate in greater employment, the poor will remain poor. The poverty situation over the past 10 years has not improved. The employment situation has not improved, has been the highest in Southeast Asia. So, in my view, if you cannot create sufficient jobs,
then
the poverty will only be worse.
Then you reduce the demand.
Yes. So if the poverty and the poverty segment of society just increases because they have the most children, their children have no future. When I have a vacation house where I go in the weekends near Kariraya Lake. And
that's where Peter Wallace has a place too. Yeah.
Yes, that's how I got to know the place.
Okay.
And I drive there.
Yeah.
And I drive through the villages. I see women with babies, I see kids, and I see men sitting being idle.
Yeah.
And I know that half of these people have no job. They have no regular job. There is malnutrition. I know that. And so if you keep producing babies, you can't solve this problem.
I have a question. I mean, I've never thought about this question, and you mentioned it that one of the positive things about this country is that it's a Christian country.
Yes.
Thus, this adapts. It is moral from the Christian perspective. That's not as difficult as Thailand and Indonesia, which carry different other belief systems. But one of the clauses of that particular belief system is that we should not intervene in what is the will of the Almighty, which is procreation. So this is where we are divided. This is where the country is divided. Now, how do you resolve that? What is your stand on that, sir? I mean, we can't say that I'll take this portion of the law or this portion of my belief and apply it. We have to apply it in whole.
Yes. We had a similar debate in Europe.
Okay.
With Christian countries, right?
Right.
Whether it's Italy, whether it's Spain or Portugal or France or Belgium or the Netherlands or Germany. Yeah. This discussion took place in the 1950s, 1960s.
Boy, that's a long time ago.
Yes. We had a similar discussion.
Right.
But the politicians decided to agree to disagree with the church on this.
Yeah.
Because the how do you say it? The interest of the common interest of the country was more important than the interest of certain segments of society. They had to go beyond their belief, so that religion did not dictate policies which had an economic and social economic impact.
So they had to go against something which was culturally and fundamentally a huge thing.
Yes.
And take a stand. That means something disagreeable with the consideration that this is logical, rational, and will create positive outcomes. So they had to make a stand.
Had to make a stand.
Yeah.
And the difference here is that politicians are not willing to make a stand on this, even if it's in the interest of economic or social economic development.
Right.
Although the polls clearly indicate that the majority of the women want access to contraceptives.
They want to have a control on their lives.
Yes, they want to have it, and they see it as also as a female right. human right to
And where
decide
does
on
this
yourself.
statistic or where does this survey come from?
Well, these surveys are over years available through the poll stations here in the Philippines.
Yeah.
So it took, how long was the RH bill in Congress? I think for about 20 years. So it took
I didn't know that, yeah.
a long while to convince politicians that something had to be done
Yeah.
in this respect. I'm always saying, imagine if we had followed the same path as Thailand. We had a similar population of about 60 million in the 1960s.
Yeah. Thailand and Philippines?
Thailand,
How big
Philippines,
is Thailand today?
80.
And we are 97.
Yeah,
97.
maybe almost 100. Yeah.
Oh.
So there is, let's say, roughly, let's say that Thailand has 20 million people less. Suppose we had 20 million people less. We wouldn't have to go and work abroad to make a living. We wouldn't have a problem in with schools and not enough schools, etc. The health situation, the health care would be much better. So a lot of the problems the country is facing today.
There's more demand than supply.
So
resources.
So that will be much easier, and so I'm absolutely sure about that. If Thailand had 20 million people more, they would also be in problems.
Mm-hmm. So you did mention that we spoke about this, you and I, that this culture has existed for hundreds of years, and it's part of the terrain, part of the history, part of the. So what are the steps on changing, bringing that awareness? Is it just going out and talking about it, or is it, well, how do you create the revival? What are your recommendations? Because you're saying it will impact governance.
Well, follow the law.
Huh?
Follow the laws. All the laws are there.
Yeah.
But for expats, if they look at the laws and what is happening around them, they will say this is a lawless society, because the laws are not being implemented. The judiciary is not.
Which would you cite an example, Mr. Arnold? Can we highlight an example of law existing and not being implemented, relevant to good governance, relevant to growth, relevant to control of population? Is there something that is? I wouldn't know because
No. Well, let me put it this way: those who evade taxes, or those government officials who they don't end in jail.
Yeah.
They don't end up in jail. No, what happens is they are transferred to another post, or they resign. But none of these. There were the recent examples at the Customs Department.
I don't know.
Well, certain people there were accused and were transferred. And everybody assumes that they were transferred because there was something going on, something fishy going on. Nobody is being charged. Nobody will ever be charged. So you get away with it. If you get away with it, you only be transferred. And some didn't accept the transfer. Why didn't they accept the transfer? Because they lost their money making. At least that is what you read in the papers about this. So that's what I call lawless. If something similar happens in my country, you are arrested. And you go to court, and you go to jail. Here nobody ends up in jail if you have been corrupt. And so
but
you know what I mean?
Ambassador, you did mention that in this book, I know it is mentioned that the current government, I mean, let's not go back to the previous administrations, this government is doing all it can.
Yes.
It's
a start. It's a very good
start. You have
start.
applauded the efforts of this current administration, which is 4 years old now. I kind of forget,
Yeah,
3 or 4 years old. No?
Over three
And
and a half years old.
in the last 2 or 3 years, there have been scenarios of Supreme Court and of course the Senate and maybe others which have come to the fore, which are symptoms. So it's happening now, and you're saying there are other cases that are not happening. What is stopping the current administration to take action at the lower rungs too? If it's happened at the Supreme Court, it's happened at the Senate, and you're mentioning a department.
Well, I don't know. And that is what many foreigners don't understand. Why is there no action taken at all levels, so to speak?
But wouldn't these two large cases, the Supreme Court and the Senate, be landmark things?
It would be, yes.
Yeah?
What happens now with the pork barrel scandal, let's say in the coming 12 months, will determine whether there is a change in morality or not.
Yeah.
If they get away with it, I think foreigners would say, well, the Philippines is a lost case.
Yeah. The world will say, you mean? The world will say.
The world will say, and also foreigners living here, of course.
So, so you're saying you have the pulse of the expat community in the country right now? How do they feel about it as of today, in the last 3 years of applaud or progress that has been achieved? What is the current pulse of the expat community?
I will say the expat community is looking at what's going on with great interest. And I think we would agree that this president will go into history as a great president if he succeeds.
Well, what are we doing to support it then? What is the foreign community doing? Are there any action steps taken up by the foreign community that you are aware of? Obviously, this is to the advantage of everyone, no?
Yes, it's to the advantage of everyone. If the infrastructure can be improved because there is more funding available, business will benefit.
Right.
More investments will come.
Right.
More employment will be created. Huh?
Yeah.
Well, an important issue is that foreign business here keeps clean. And
it does.
Well,
to a certain extent, yeah, okay.
I would say that most foreign business try to do so.
Right.
But it's not always possible. And I know it's not always possible because when I was an ambassador, very often entrepreneurs came to see me and asked for help and advice. What can we do? We are faced with a request for so and so, and should we do it or not? We want to refuse, but we cannot get the license if we, etc., etc. So I always told them, try to stay clean. Offer something else. Offer something in corporate social responsibility. Let me put just one concept. If a politician, let's assume a politician wants to get some money for certain whatever favors, you can tell him, listen.
Say he wants to build a bridge in his community, or a hospital, or a school.
Yes. Go for the social thing, which also will benefit the politician, because if another schoolroom is built, or whatever, a basketball field, or something into the sports, something into the arts, support that.
Yeah.
And the politician will benefit because he was the one who took care that it came there. That's the way to do it.
Create social value.
Yeah. Create social value.
Yeah.
Instead of giving.
Instead of adding personal growth to an individual, no?
Yeah.
Ambassador Arnold, one of my former guests and also a mentor of mine, Dr. Dean Villegas, you know him,
yes,
no?
Yes.
From the University of Asia Pacific, was here, and many times he makes a case against the fact that we are growing population. We are a large population in comparison to countries of our caliber, and we are a younger population, and that creates a kind of an anthropological edge on growth. No? He probably has a point, because he's looking at growth vis-a-vis natural growth on a larger perspective. Do you have that view? Do you have that perspective that is long-term and huge and still anthropological in its angle? In terms of success and cleanliness of a governance?
I don't agree with his views on the population.
Right, yeah.
No. I think it's very easy to say, well, let's continue to grow, which means let's continue to be poor.
Yeah.
And so later we don't have a problem like now in the West, that the population is aging and so on. That problem that the West has is a luxury problem. It's a problem, but it's a luxury problem. But that should not prevent poorer countries not to develop and not to reduce the...
To become prudent about spending its resources, to become prudent about it.
So I'm saying, okay, worry about that later, but not into this phase, because it extends the duration of the lower development.
You're saying eat less until we earn more. Yes. Yeah, spend less until we earn more. So it's okay. So Ambassador Arnold, good. So we have your views on them, and hopefully those views will be heard by the right people. No? Let's talk about this book. It's a very romantic, fun kind of a book. No? And any part of this book is part of you. Is there a character in here who reflects you? If people, you haven't read this book, I really urge you. Is this available at National Bookstores?
National Bookstore, Power Books, and Fully Booked.
And it is like not too expensive, is it? I don't know. So tell me, how do you go about creating something so creative and still putting across points that you just did? Tell me, how did you go about coming up with this? Where did the chutzpah come from?
Well, it's fiction.
Yeah.
I wanted to wrap my message into a story which would make my message more accessible to a broader public.
Yeah.
So one day, I just sat behind my computer and I started.
Yeah.
I thought, well, where do I start? Well, let's start at the peninsula. So the main character goes to the peninsula, and so what happens? He sees a girl. And so it continues, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't have the story beforehand how it would develop.
All right.
So, and that was fun, actually.
Yeah.
So during 3 months, I came up with the story. And of course, I wanted to prevent that people would say, oh, this is autobiographical.
Autobiographical, yeah.
So it's Theo. No, it's not. But of course, a lot of the views expressed by the main character are my views.
Right.
Because I share certain experiences, certain views, whether it's on population or on other things. And that's me.
Yeah. So when I picked up this book, I thought it was torn between the love for two countries or two cultures. Yes, it is, but it's also torn between two women. No?
Yes.
So Ambassador Arnold, tell us now about your current life here and the future that you foresee for the country. And of course, you're now married and in love with a Filipino.
Yeah. Well, I spend my days now painting and running the foundation.
Yeah.
We are at the moment working on a large project, a student painting contest.
Yeah.
It's in the magazine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rolly? Okay, yeah. This is the event?
This is the event.
NGITI painting event?
Yeah.
Yeah.
GT is meaning smile, in
GT in what language?
Tagalog.
Oh, okay. And this
The
is
smile.
from the, one more. And this is from the magazine which is produced
Bravo.
by your company,
Yes,
Bravo,
Bravo
Filipino.
Yeah. Produced by Best Victoria. Yes,
And this
by
happens in February 2014.
Yes.
Okay.
So we approach art schools,
Yeah.
art colleges,
Yeah.
and we invite them to participate in this contest. So I'm seeking sponsorship for this.
Yeah.
Because there are money prizes for the 3 winners. I hope that we can exhibit at the NCCA gallery in Intramuros.
Mm-hmm.
We did this last year,
Yeah.
and we were able to exhibit 34 finalists in painting finalists in the NCCA gallery. This is a lot of work. We got over 200 entries last year.
Yeah.
We expect about 300 entries at least this year. We have to select the finalists and well, to prepare everything and so on. That will keep me busy.
And
Particularly getting sponsorships, that's not easy, as you know. And certainly at the moment, yeah.
So Ambassador Arnold, thank you very much for your interview. I hope your insights are heard by the right people, and good luck with this, the book and the magazine. Yeah?
Thank you very
much. Good luck
much.
with living in the Philippines and mabuhay. So if there's anything you want to say other than what we already discussed, this is your time. If not, I'd like to close the show.
Well, I would like to say again that as a foreigner living in this country, very happily, I would like to see a more equitable and more prosperous country, and that's the reason why I came out with these views.
So on that
Thank you
note,
very much.
mabuhay and salamat again one more time.
Thank you.
So that
Raju.
was Ambassador Arnold, formerly from the Dutch Embassy, and today Philippines is home. Thank you for watching ExPat InSights. I hope you enjoyed this. Do buy these books and enjoy them. I'll see you next week with a person who's going to talk about Shakespeare. Until then, have a great weekend and mabuhay.